my heart, I always knew what was right. I never had a doubt of who God was or who the devil was. Because of that, I had a moral compass. There were things I wouldn't do. And maybe I created Alice to do those things. I was the biggest rock star in the world, but this Alice character nearly killed me. It's hard to believe I fell so far. Before I was Alice, I was Vincent Fournier, and I lived a really all-American childhood. My dad was a pastor, so I was in church on Wednesday night, Friday night, all day Sunday. And I didn't lie, steal, or swear. I was the perfect 50s kid. But I grew up in Detroit. So cars, street violence, and rock and roll music was in the DNA.
Roll out with your American dream and its recruits, I've been ready. Roll out with your circus freaks and hula hoops, I've been ready.
I was sort of a frail kid. I had asthma really bad, and every winter I was under an inhaler. Finally, the doctor said, get him out of this cold climate, get him someplace hot. And that was Phoenix.
I've been waiting so long to sing this song. And I've been waiting so long for this thing to come.
My very being here was a miracle. I had appendicitis so bad, doctor said, I don't know how he's alive right now. There's so much poison in his system. I can't guarantee he's going to survive this. My mom and dad were literally on the floor praying. The next day, they walked in, and I was sitting up, chewing gum, and reading an Archie's comic.
I can stand here strong and thin, and I can laugh when this thing begins.
After they had done the operation, I had this huge scar. God said, I'm going to put this mark on you. Every time I'd look at my scar, I knew that my life was a miracle. The story of Alice Cooper really begins in high school art class. In school, I was always drawing. That's all I did. I just drew, and drew. And that's how I met a character named Dennis Dunaway, who immediately became my best friend.
I was in art class, and here comes this skinny little guy who is the only one in the class that seems to be interested in surrealism and Dada art. We would go through books, and I'd say, look at this guy, Magritte. And Vince would say, oh yeah, but check out this guy, Brock.
Who, sir, is the greatest living painter in the world?
Today, Dali.
Salvador Dali totally piqued our imagination. We sit there and go, who is this guy? He had this mustache, and he was wearing giraffe skin suits and Aladdin shoes, and he did all kinds of insane things.
Dali was outrageously different, and Vince and I liked that. We liked any artistic statement that had impact.
3,000 screaming teenagers are at New York's Kennedy Airport to greet, you guessed it, the Beatles.
We were total Beatlemaniacs. The style, the sound, the look. They had long hair, and parents were confused, which was a big part of it.
The school decided to have a talent show, and I thought of this idea of doing a spoof of the Beatles. We decided we were going to wear Beatle wigs so we could be the earwigs. Then we realized, how are we going to do these songs? We don't know how to play.
Dennis says, I know a guy that plays guitar, Glenn Buxton. He's a juvenile delinquent, and he's getting thrown out every day, and he smokes cigarettes, and he's cool, and he can play about 6 songs.
We thought, this guy's pretty tough. I don't know if we should approach him. He probably wouldn't go for it. But we went up and told him what we were going to do. And he said he didn't want to wear a wig, but he would play guitar and play the Beatles songs.
The curtain opened, and we just tried to pretend to do what the Beatles were doing. Sing into the mic, wiggle your head.
Everybody was excited because Beatlemania was so new. We got a big reaction.
All the girls started screaming. That was the gasoline on the fire. I wanted that experience over and over and over and over again. So that summer, Dennis learned bass. I learned to sing in tune. We would go over the same song 50 times a night. Every day, we got a little bit better. And then this club opened up called the VIP. It was a rock and roll teenage dance hall. Sold Coca-Colas and hot dogs and French fries.
Vince and the guys came in on a Saturday afternoon and showed their stuff. I liked them a lot, and I said I'd like to use you, but we got to do something with the name.
Yeah, the Earwigs is like what we started with. We were ready to evolve to the next bug.
The spider, in the spider sanctum.
I said one day I'd find game. Well, now you know they're my thing.
Boy, when they opened, it was instant.
Now all you feel is suicide.
We became the house band at the VIP club. We didn't even do Beatles at that point. You played the Yardbirds, Rolling Stones, The Who, Make It Loud, Make It Rock. We got to actually open for the Yardbirds and did all their songs.
I remember the Yardbirds come out for their set, and half the crowd left. There were even some people complaining that they were doing our songs.
Don't blow your mind from the sensational Spiders from Venus.
We had a #2 record on KRUX, and we're still in high school. Our senior year, we owned the place. Every senior girl, every freshman girl, wow, you guys are in the Spiders?
Don't blow your mind away.
By now, church was way down the menu on priorities. But there was those times when there was a definite pull back and forth. What do you mean you have a show tonight? You have church? So if I did do the show, I felt really guilty.
Dad was the preacher, so his obligation was to go to church on Sunday. But he would go to church and people would say, look at his hair. I don't recall too many people complaining right to your face, but we knew there was a lot of whispering. But what can you do? He was going to stay in his band. He was going to grow his hair.
Everybody in church thought I was going off the deep end. It really angered me because what is the difference if I have long hair or not? I was growing up and I knew that there was something more out there. Here comes Salvador Dali, here comes the Beatles. When all these elements come together, I wanted to be sucked into that. I wanted to get to LA And I wanted to play rock and roll and meet girls and do everything I could possibly do to be a rock star. The last thing on my mind was church.
Standing with your head held high, you will be reflected.
It was 1967 in Los Angeles, the heart of the Love Generation, the whole hippie movement. They were just everywhere.
Baby, what a day, all of the time.
I could not believe it. We were just in this fantasy world. We walked down Sunset Strip, you know, the birds are over here, the Doors are over here in Buffalo, Springfield, everything. And we're like, okay, we got to do this.
Could you be receptive? Only Hollywood keep its divine.
You have the hopes and dreams that when you get there, everything's just going to fall into place. But you get there and realize there's 10,000 other bands there from every state who were the best band in their state. And they were all trying to get into the same clubs. Now, the one thing about LA is that it is designed to destroy your band. There's so many distractions, so many parties, so many girls. That's how we met the GTOs. They were a girl band that lived in the basement of Frank Zappa's log cabin. They were professional partiers, girls from another planet.
I'm in love with the ooh man. He was born and raised in Schneeschneeland, and his first name is the same as his last.
I remember the day we all met the boys. They were cute, but they were pretty darn straight. They were almost like this oddball, kind of reserved, gentle group of guys in the midst of a whole lot of very stoned people.
Vince and I were pretty innocent, really. But hanging out with the GTOs, there was experimentation going on, that's for sure. We got turned on to these little pieces of paper that would bend your mind extremely.
Not me. I was totally straight. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything. But I went to a party one night, and I just happened to run into an old friend from church, Judy Jones, who I had a little crush on back in the old days. She handed me a beer. This was still maybe a chance to hit on her. You know, I don't want her to think I don't drink beer.
That night, I was just praying that Vince would walk in the door. And I'm talking about a door that would stretch like it was made out of rubber, and I'm talking about a room that wasn't square anymore, and all kinds of stuff like that. Vince was the only one that would be down to earth and be an anchor.
That night, I had 2 beers, maybe 3, and I was just blind drunk. They had to carry me home. The door opens up. Dennis is in there. He's standing next to the drapes, and he goes, "Who would wear pants this size?"
Who walks in the door? Vince, who is now plastered. And I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. This is terrible.
We were smart enough to realize that nobody in LA cared about Phoenix. You had to start all over here. I said, the Spiders is really dated. We got to come up with another name. Somebody said, what about like the Naz? It almost has a fuzz tone sound to it, Naz. Or what if we went the other way? What if we were the Flowers? Or what if we were Springtime? Or what about something really crazy like the Husky Baby Sandwich? So then Neil Smith, our drummer, the Platinum God, decides to drop acid and consult the Ouija board.
I asked the Ouija board, did I live in a previous lifetime? What was my name? And it spelled out a German name. I said, okay, this isn't working out. Then Vince sat down to the Ouija board and he said, did I live in a previous life? I said, yes. I said, where? I said, in England. And how was I killed? I said he was killed as a witch. And he said, what was my name? And it spells out Alice Cooper.
I said, wow, Alice Cooper. Sounds like a little old lady that lives down the street, makes cookies for everybody. But there's a lot of bodies buried in that cellar. So the name stuck, and Alice Cooper was born.
Changing, arranging, things I never thought I'd move before.
The day that we played as Alice Cooper for the first time, I looked around. Everybody in all three bands on the bill were wearing Levi's, and I said, we got to be different.
They saw that there was a need to be more and more outrageous, so we helped them out. We always wore a lot of clothes, a lot of boas, vests, belts, jangly things, and we would just put them on, the boys, and they loved it.
The GTOs told us this thrift store was selling old Ice Capades outfits for $0.25 a pound. So we went in and we bought 50 pounds.
Changing, arranging, baby, baby, for the rest of my life. I swear all I see is a car we've got the image of me.
This image was now part of Alice Cooper, but we weren't musically as good as we needed to be. So we used a lot of theatrics to get attention.
I'm changing, arranging to your personality. I ask for it.
If I found a watermelon backstage, that was a prop. If I found a broom, it was something you could swing around your head, you can ride on it, a hammer, a light bulb. No matter what it was, why not incorporate it into the show somehow? How do you become Alice Cooper? Well, you create it. Miss Christine and Miss Pamela, they went to Frank Zappa and they said, wait till you see this band. Frank saw a picture of us and he went, wow, how weird is that? A male GTOs. I could use that. Have them here at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
The next morning, we showed up, knock on the door, knock on the door. The door opens, Miss Christine is standing there and goes into shock. We barged right in, set up all of our equipment, and started playing. It was so loud, I remember the picture on the wall went crooked.
Frank comes down and he goes, what are you doing? I said, you said 7. I meant 7 at night. He listened and he went, I don't get it. Where are you guys from? And I said, Phoenix. And he goes, Phoenix? It's a cowboy town. No, I really don't get it.
And that's when he said, do you have a manager? We said, no. You know, we may have even said, what's a manager? I don't know at that point.
I moved out to California from New York. My life was completely fucked. I worked as a probation officer, quit the first day. Drove up to LA, saw the Hollywood Landmark Motel. Checked in, got friendly with a whole collection of people living there. Arthur Lee from Love, the Chambers Brothers, Jefferson Airplane. I mean, it was just crazy. I, in college, had done a little dealing, so I started dealing to all the guys. And then Lester Chambers said, if the police come and ask you, how do you pay for your hotel room? What are you going to tell him? So I said, I don't know. And he said, you Jewish? And I said, yeah. He said, you should be a manager. Great, who do I manage? And Lester said, we have this group living in our basement called Alice Cooper.
Lester brought us over to the Landmark Hotel, knock on the door, open the door, and it's like a wall of fog. When you got through the fog, there's Janis Joplin, there's Jim Morrison, and there's Jimi Hendrix, just all getting high. We're standing there in rock royalty because Shep had the grass. Clearly, he knew what he was doing. So we signed with Shep Gordon that night. The next day, we go into Frank Zappa, and he says, who's that guy? I said, that's our manager. And he goes, you didn't have a manager yesterday. And I went, yeah, we met him last night.
So we all shook hands, and we made a deal with Zappa that started the journey.
We were on Frank Zappa's label, and it was the biggest thing ever happened to us. When we went into the studio, Frank said, I don't want to do layer upon layer of sound. The charm of your band is that you can do this live.
Frank says, I want it to sound like I'm driving by a garage and the band is practicing. So we just start tuning up, adjusting the amps and stuff. Okay, Frank, I think we're ready to go now. He says, we got them. We got the takes. What? We didn't even play yet. He says, oh, we can fix it in the mix.
Frank looked at his watch. Okay, I'm going to be back at 5. Anything more you guys record, that's the album. And he came back at 5:15 and picked up the tape, and that was Pretty's for You.
Lester Bangs reviewed Pretty's for You and said, this album is a tragic waste of plastic.
Nobody likes me, it's all my fault. Nobody likes me, nobody likes me.
Even though we had the stamp of approval of Zappa, we were kind of the joke of the town. People were just like, Alice Cooper, look at these guys, I'm gonna throw a beer at them.
One time we played a show for 6,000 hippies that were freaked out on acid.
Yes, yes.
And when we came out, it was like a nightmare. That place just emptied. People were running for the doors. It was like somebody yelled fire.
Bill Graham, the promoter, he said, you tell these fucking assholes, either they play fucking music or they fucking act. They're not doing both on my fucking stage. Get these motherfuckers out of here. Alice Cooper was really hated in Los Angeles.
Right, we all hate you, we hate you a lot. We hate all your family, we hate your dog spot.
We basically left Los Angeles with our tails between our legs.
It was a tough time. We were completely desolate. But we just put our heads down and kept going. And our mantra was that we would move into the first city where we got a standing ovation.
There was a long period of time there where we were stray dogs without a home, just wandering around playing wherever we could play.
We were living out of suitcases in cheap hotels, bouncing checks, blackballed by clubs, you know. Look out for these guys. But Vince and I had that long distance mentality. There's no rear view mirror. If something fails, it's behind us.
Yes, it's laughing at me.
At one point, Shep says, I got us a gig at a big pop festival. We're $2,000. $2,000 to keep us going for quite a while. So we played the Saugatuck Pop Festival in Detroit.
When it happened, something snapped inside, made me want to hide.
Detroit was was the antithesis of LA. Every band was up there for blood. The MC5 were like a full-out show band. They were like Ike and Tina Turner, but with a bad attitude. And I went, wow, where are we? And then Iggy comes on and bam, impact. Iggy literally drained the audience of their energy. I don't want to go on after that guy. I'm used to going on after a blues band.
Beautiful baby, be my love all night.
We couldn't follow the Stooges by trying to outpower them. We would have to be much more dramatic.
The band came out, and I just thought they were fucking great. There seemed to be a contest in the band of who could have the longest, most feminine hair. I think the drummer won. It was great theatrics. Everything was odd or weird, and nobody was really doing anything quite like that at the time.
I'm coming after you. Coming after you.
What they were doing was Salvador Dali with an electric guitar, and Detroit was open to that. All they care about is, do you produce? Do you sweat? Do you entertain the people? And if you do that, they'll love you.
That night, we killed him. Finally, an audience got it. We got our standing ovation, and it felt like coming home. Shep knew people that wanted to do a big concert called the Toronto Rock Revival. Shep spent a month helping them put that thing together, and they get John Lennon. Shep says, you don't have to pay me. The payment's gonna be Alice Cooper goes on right before John Lennon.
The stadium was absolutely full, packed. The crowd is getting very antsy. There was tons of excitement.
There was a Beatle gonna be going on next to us, and we're a no name.
I knew that was a moment where we had to do something. You don't get to play with John Lennon too often.
We get on stage, and the audience is a little bewildered. But the energy behind the band, they dug. At the end of the show, the idea was to open up 3 feather pillows, CO2 cartridge, so it looked like snow.
For some reason, there was a chicken backstage. And when the feather pillows went out, I threw the chicken up.
The next thing I looked down, there's a chicken. I went, okay. It had feathers, it had wings, it should fly. You know, it's a bird, right? A chicken's a bird. So I picked up the chicken and I chucked it in the audience.
It came down and people grabbed the chicken, and let's just say it wasn't healthy for the chicken.
The audience tore it to pieces and threw it back up on stage. There was blood, head, the feathers.
The crowd was totally shocked. This whole stadium was like dead quiet.
We killed a chicken in front of 70,000 hippies. All of a sudden, we were the most notorious band on the planet, and everybody wanted to know about Alice Cooper.
At that point, the whole group was Alice Cooper. But a PR lady said she didn't know how to make 5 people called Alice Cooper stars, but if we could pick one person, that she knew how to do.
This is Alice Cooper, and anybody can have what they want out of Alice Cooper. I mean, I'm not trying to press or push anything. The whole theme of the thing is to, it's to attack just to have fun. Like I get off just scaring people. It's almost like a sexual thing to go on stage and completely expose myself as far as my inner personality, you know, my whole Mr. Hyde type of personality.
Even though we were notorious, we still didn't have anything on the radio.
People were dying to love this band, but what was missing? A freaking hit song. So we looked at bands that had a nice string of hits, and the Guess Who kept popping up. So we did our research and found out that a company out of Toronto called Nimbus 9 made their hit records.
I went to Toronto and waited in the office. And I think the second day this young guy came out.
My boss said, whatever you do, get rid of Alice Cooper. He took one look at the picture of the band, these 5 creatures of indeterminate sex, and he didn't want to be in the same county with them, never mind in the same studio. But Shep is irascible and wouldn't take no for an answer, so finally I agreed to go to New York and see them play.
New York heard about this half girl, half guy, half alien band that killed animals. So everybody that was anybody in the underground hip world was there. And our attitude was, let's just kill them with Detroit rock and roll.
The show opened up with Alice at the lip of the stage with bloodshot red eyes and blood red gums and gleaming teeth, scowling right in front of my face as this band of like monsters hit the stage. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. There were no t-shirts, there were no jeans, it was like sets and props and lights. I said, this isn't rock and roll, it's the beginning of a cultural movement. After the show, I came bounding up the stairs into the dressing room, and my hand in the air, and I said, we'll do it! We'll produce you, and you will make hit records.
We're like, yeah, right, kid. Glenn's like, you know, I'd buy him a drink, but he's not old enough.
Mommy, where's Daddy? I was gone for 14 days. I might have been gone for more.
When we went into the studio, Bob and I talked about Alice Cooper in the third person, so I could play Alice and be as insane as I wanted to be behind this mask.
I saw Alice Cooper as all kinds of different crazy characters. So each song got dealt with theatrically. Dwight Fry was cut with a straitjacket on.
I wanna get out of here.
So when he was saying that, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
I wanna get out of here.
I gotta get out of here. Like he really meant it.
I wanna get out of here. I wanna get out of here. I just wanna get out of here. I wanna get out of here. I wanna get out of here.
This character that we created was coming to life right in front of us. Doing it live was one thing. We could project it live, but with Bob Ezrin, we were able to capture that into grooves on record, which meant that now we're going to do something dramatic musically.
Lines form on my
we had this song that we used to warm up with. It went on for 10 minutes. And Bob kept saying, "What are you singing there? I'm edgy?" "No, I'm 18.
Bob saw that as the song that would put us on the map. But he would say, "That's not a song, that's a whole album."
Bob said, just make it bam, 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 so it keeps coming at you all the way through the song, which is what a good single does.
I'm 18 and I like it. Yes, I like it.
All right, this is the new 45 from Alice Cooper, 18.
On our way to rehearsal, the radio was always on, and all of a sudden we heard 18. It stunned us. We pulled the car over, and I went, "That's our record."
So we just started 24-hour-a-day calling the hotlines of every radio station. I had my mother doing it, my brother, everybody had every relative doing it.
Please may I hear I'm 18 by Alice Cooper?
Eventually, they moved it in the heavy rotation. So it would be, "I'm 18, and then the Beatles, the Stones, and Hendrix, and then I'm 18.
We just went, "What? You can't say Alice Cooper and Rolling Stones in the same sentence. That's sacrilege." It's like, what if they find out that we're Alice Cooper? We were an overnight sensation. All of a sudden, we were in limousines. All of a sudden, we were in airplanes. To us, it was so much fun. We just drank beer all day and just said, "What's next?"
With a hit record, we didn't have to bite the head off of a chicken. We play I'm 18, and 5,000 people go crazy.
You don't know what I'm going through. I'm right in between, so I'll just play along with you.
His name is Alice Cooper, the latest superstar to hit the rock scene. His father was a preacher, so was his grandfather. They hoped he would be too. Instead, he became a rock musician.
I'm calling it a dream, so what? I don't know what I'm going through. I'm right in between, so I'll just play along with you.
Our audience was a new audience. It was not the Crosby, Stills, and Nash audience.
What? God damn it!
Kids on the lunatic fringe of society, the ones that were left out, they finally had a rock star that represented them.
I was wondering when you started to adopt the theatrics, some of the outrageous things that you do on stage to provoke people and to shake them up a little bit.
Well, there's such an enormous lack of entertainment in rock music, you know. I mean, it got to the point where if you go to a concert, all you're going to see is a guitar solo, a drum solo, you know, and how far can that go? You know, you want to see something that you're going to go home and talk about and scare your parents with, you know. So if some 14-year-old boy goes home wearing eye makeup saying, "Hey, Alice Cooper wears it, why can't I wear it?" And of course his parents are going to say,
We knew chopping up the baby dolls would really drive parents crazy. Then we thought, well, is Alice wearing a snake on stage something that parents would hate? Oh, they just cringe. That's perfect, then let's use a snake.
Little Betty's sleeping in the graveyard, living there in burgundy and wine.
Alice with this snake and the makeup, this is gonna blow it right off the map, especially when they hang me.
Little Betty,
sadomasochistic exploits of West Coast mass murderers are now acted out on stages across the country. For it appears America's children are turning on to a new message, a message of sex, death, and violence, as portrayed on stage by Alice Cooper.
Dead babies can't take care of themselves. Dead babies can't take care of themselves.
How are we going to outdo this? That's all I ever thought about. We picked up ideas like sponges.
You never know where inspiration is going to come from. On the road, the television was our constant friend.
Let others wallow in Watergate. We're going to do our job.
Skinny! Hey, Skinny!
Hey, hold your horses, Muggs. I'm coming.
Relax, Skinny. School's out.
Wow. Did you just say school's out? We thought 18 was our anthem. We didn't know that School's Out would be even bigger than that. In the music business, if you have a hit record, you are in. Giving Alice Cooper a hit was like the lunatics running the asylum. So I said, let's put Panties on the album. The mothers will go crazy.
This is the last straw. No more Alice Cooper.
So then Shep goes, Alice Cooper is going to take over the Hollywood Bowl, where all the classy acts play, and turned it into Hell's a Poppin'.
Alice Cooper programs, free record in the back.
I've seen him 3 years ago in a real small concert in Michigan, and I followed him out here. And I don't know, he just does freaky things on stage. They're just really out of sight to watch.
His music, man, I like the way he presents himself and performs up on the stage, man. It gets in me, you know? I don't know, I just freak out.
Well, see, I'm this perfectly normal guy. All right, and I'm not a freak, and I like Alice Cooper.
It's the Alice Cooper show, and how many here feel it? They want to get it out.
Wolfman Jack, one of my all-time idols, he comes out on stage with a camel and an elephant and harem girls and introduced the band.
All right, everybody, Wolfman Jack, Alice Cooper, yeah.
I'm going, that's the Wolfman.
The legendary Alice Cooper.
You're on stage, you're playing, you've had the camel, you've had Wolfman Jack, so what are you going to do next? Shep was like, we're going to pay these helicopter guys to fly over the crowd. And then here comes all of these panties, different colors, falling down on the audience. And I'm ready to just burst because I am so excited about how cool this idea is.
You never will understand.
It was a show I'll never forget. I remember the helicopter coming over and me fighting people in the crowd. I so desperately wanted a pair of these panties. For me, it was the perfect rock and roll show at that time. Alice had this incredible ability to be a ringleader, and he wrapped that audience around his little finger for 2 hours.
lot of people say me and my boys are funny boys. Isn't that just a little bit silly? Goodbye, everybody in Los Angeles. School's out.
I was inspired, I was moved what Alice put together. As a showman, you couldn't help but just love this guy.
All the young girls of Alice, tender young Alice, they say.
Alice. I love him. Do you think he's sexy? Yeah.
I feel so excited and everything, you know, just seeing him in person on stage is just great, it really is.
He's better than Mick Jagger?
Yeah.
What would you do if you met him?
Everything.
All the young girls of Alice,
Parents hate him, though.
tender young Alice, they say. Come over and see me, come over and please me. Alice, it's my turn today. All the young girls of Alice, tender young Alice, they say.
All of a sudden, Alice became more in the fishbowl than the rest of us. I'd walk into Alice's room, and it would be Alice staring at a television and all of these people staring at Alice, watching him watch television. If Alice said, "Can somebody get me a beer?" everybody would scramble. It wasn't a world of reality.
This character had to be constantly fucked up, really out there, and it wasn't necessarily his nature, but the alcohol really drove him.
I got lost in the character. Why would I want to go back to being Vince when Alice was so successful? Hey, everybody loves Alice. I'll be Alice. Vince is fine, but who needs him? I was on fire with this Alice character.
Most musical acts relying on pop radio. Alice was so much more. We were able to manufacture moments that spread them out to every corner of everything.
We got a call from Salvador Dali's people that he wanted to meet us. I said, this is gonna be great. He's the guy, it's like meeting the Beatles. We go to the St. Moritz Hotel. Salvador Dali walks in and he goes, the Dali is here.
And then he went into this speech about the Dali, the greatest artist, the Cooper, the greatest artist.
He wants to do this moving hologram. He said, I want you to sit in the middle and wear $4 million in diamonds. And he has this brain with him. And he goes, this is the Alice brain. It's got ants crawling all over it, and the ants spelled out Alice and Dali, and a chocolatey Claire running down the back.
Alice being with Dali was as significant as a record because it defined who he was. Alice was becoming a real icon.
I wasn't even told that it was going on. The band had been sent one place and Alice went to the unveiling. Here's something that's symbolic of our achievement of our vision. And then I was excluded. That really hurt me because even though I was happy for Alice, I just felt like I was left out of something that him and I should be sharing. things started changing with success. The band became treated like outsiders and barely a step above any fan that would try to get into Alice's room.
We always had 2 limos, and one time I got in one of them and somebody came out to me and said that you can't sit in there. That's Alice's car. All the shit that this band had ever gone through together as one unit, I had a switchblade with me. I was ready to stab this motherfucker.
Alice needed his own car because Alice would have to go to radio stations. Alice would have to go to red carpets. Alice would have to attend all these parties. Everybody else would go into town, take a nap, go to the pool, but Alice never had a minute.
Even though touring was hard, it didn't ever feel like work. But now 6 or 7 years of it was catching up with me. Okay, wait, I gotta take a breath.
Look at me. Would you buy a car from this man?
I needed a break from the band. I needed a break from touring. I needed a break from Alice. But you can't stop. You gotta put another album out that was gonna be a #1.
The band had decided we wanted to get back to being a band, not just the vehicle for Alice. We're going to get back to our roots, and we're going to work up this song that we had had for a million years called Woman Machine. We're feeling really good about this. And then Bob showed up. Bob, we got this new song. Listen to this. We didn't even get past the intro when Bob stopped us and said, wait, I think you should play something different on that. What are you talking about? We didn't even play the song yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege and pleasure to introduce the world's greatest singer, Alice Cooper.
The band really felt like Alice and I had too much control. They had a vision, and they wanted to see that vision through. For the first time ever in our relationship, they just go, no, that's not the way we hear that. We'd rather do it this way. I had a little meeting with Alice, and I just said, it's obvious they don't really want to work with me anymore. And if you ever decide to go out on your own, let me know, because I love you and I love working with you.
I always believed in the sure thing. And I know that Bob was the only one that understood Alice Cooper. But I'm still in the band. I'm going, okay, well, if Bob's not in, we're still going to make a record, right? So we flew to Los Angeles and did the next album without Bob Ezrin.
Coast to coast, white hot as a ghost, when you live in a countdown.
I went and lived in Malibu while we were recording. It probably was one of the first times that I ever avoided the other guys. We were fracturing, and this album just didn't have any cohesion. We didn't have Bob to hold it together. Everybody was frustrated, and the band wanted to do solo albums.
Other bands have done it, but we were sort of warned by management that it's not a good idea to take a year off and do a solo album. I don't know if it's a warning or a threat.
My attitude was, if you do solo records, then Alice does his, and you're fucked. Because this is the only one people care about, so please don't do it. But if you do it, then we gotta do what we do.
Shep was smart enough to understand that if there is going to be a solo career, I should own the name. I walk down the street, nobody says, hey, Vince. Everybody goes, hey, Alice. I was the character of Alice Cooper.
Could any of the rest of us have carried off that character? I don't think so. So when Alice became a solo artist, then I realized, okay, Alice Cooper, the band, is definitely over. It was very, very tough, the separation from the art, but mostly the separation of friendship.
Dennis was the first one that encouraged me to become something other than myself. For the Vince part of me, it was hard to leave Dennis behind. But now I was Alice. And Alice had a life of his own.
Of course, coming through when the photographers are snapping this, Alice Cooper.
I just left my drink over there, and I don't have anything in my liver.
Johnny, are you working on an album?
Yes, the name of the album is Welcome to My Nightmare.
That sounds interesting.
I'm the murderer, and I will be murdered.
You're going to murder yourself?
That very possibly. That could happen.
I was scared to death to go out on my own. How many lead singers broke away from their bands and became successful?
Especially with him separating from the group, we wanted to make a statement. This was a new beginning.
Everything we could get, we threw into that show. It was like a big Broadway play. We had Vincent Price. We even had dancers. There was this one girl that was the most beautiful dancer you've ever seen. She just floated up there.
I was 18 years old. And the very first day I met Alice, he comes waltzing in the room all dressed in white, flowing black hair, these gorgeous blue eyes. I remember getting lost in conversation with Alice about childhood. We found out that, oh, we're both pastors' kids.
Every night there was very romantic moments with her. And I started looking forward more to those moments than anything else.
I was best man at Alice's wedding, and life was fantastic. We actually pulled Nightmare off, and it actually worked.
Everybody loved the show. My solo career was a success. So I was in my glory.
Ladies and gentlemen, the debonair and adorable Alice Cooper. You're not exactly what I expected. I kind of expected that grotesque makeup and those weird, crazy costumes and a snake and a coffin and all those things that drive me crazy. You know.
Well, I'm trying to change my image.
I was becoming a real celebrity. I would sit down next to Jack Benny and he would be like, Alice, is everything I see's got your picture on it? It's ridiculous. George Burns had watched the show and he saw it as vaudeville. Yeah, I remember 1923, the great Momar cut his head off and he had a snake. My mom didn't really consider me a star until I had a picture taken with Frank Sinatra. Frank would call me Coop. Coop, pretty cool.
Would you welcome Alice Cooper? Hey, big fella.
Hey, baby, what's happening? What kind of a snake is this?
This is a boa.
This is a boa.
This is actually not a...
Alice Cooper was good TV, and that's when Alice became more than a rock star. Almost woven into the fabric of America was this Alice character.
Alice Cooper organized a big cleanup at Riverside Park today. People accuse you of doing this whole thing for publicity.
What's wrong with that?
Alice was so big and so on that he played Alice all the time. And Alice drank all the time. None of us ever really thought about the consequences to him for being this character. And it started to consume him. There was no time for Vincent. He got lost somewhere in the shuffle.
It was just a slow disintegration, and somebody had to intervene.
Because I'm the queen of the silver.
I had a house in upstate New York, so we found a hospital right by the house, and it was bizarre. It was a lockup place for people with real mental disorders, and the people were really scary. Everybody was whacked. This was tough. You know, my best friend is in this place with lunatics, and I put him there.
I remember them closing the door and realizing that I wasn't going to come out again. That was it. And I went, well, wait a minute. You know, get my manager on the phone. Get my wife on the phone. How dare you buy this place and tear it down and build a bar out of it.
We're the lunatic fringe who rusted the hinge on Uncle Sam's daughters and sons.
There was not one person in there that one time ever said Alice Cooper, rock star. They were so involved in their own insanity that I was just another guy.
We're all crazy. We're all crazy.
I was away from the responsibility of being Alice Cooper, away from the parties, and every day I felt a little better. Finally, maybe I'm not gonna die.
I'm not a psychiatrist nor a psychologist, but do you think you're cured?
Oh yeah, I can't even think about drinking, you know.
Do you think that you could turn back to alcohol as a crutch?
No, I don't think so. I've got like a second lease on life on the thing. And to me, it's really exciting.
And you've now linked up with Bernie Taupin.
Yeah, we've been threatening to write together for years, and finally we got a chance. When I got out of the hospital, I was totally serious about it. I said, now I want to write. And he still thought it was one of those things, yeah, well, let's go get drunk and talk about it. You know?
My association with Alice was based on pure friendship. We were two people who really liked being together. And when he came out of the sanitarium, he approached me with the idea of doing an album based on his experiences.
One starts, and I'll sing the bits I can sing.
Alice had a pool house out the back. We would just hang out in there, and he would talk to me about these characters from the sanitarium. We just wanted to do something together and be able to say it was our project. I like to think that was a help to him.
This album was a total confession. The audience has been through my alcoholism with me. So let's let them be through the cure with me. I was sobered. What if you don't love me like this?
How you gonna see me now? Please don't see me ugly, babe. 'Cause I know I let you down in oh so many ways. How you gonna see me now? Since we've been on.
Hello? Anybody there? All right, well, listen. Everybody who makes music feels that they're kind of out of sync as the years go by. But I never meant the Pistols to be a challenge to Alice Cooper. More like a compliment, thank you. You know, he had an influence on us. I think anything that Alice has ever done is good enough for me. Except golf. Alice, lay off the golf.
How you gonna see me now? Please don't see me ugly, babe.
It was a new period of time. There's new kind of bands coming out. I was totally sober and not fully armed to fight them. But there was something called cocaine.
Personally, myself, you know, at the time, sort of had a drug problem. You know, it's the old thing of, I'll be right back, you know, go to the bathroom. And I'd be doing coke. And Alice, he's not a stupid guy. He's catching wind of something here.
I kind of thought, well, I quit drinking. I could probably allow myself to do something like this. And I started like everybody else. One little hit of this, a little hit of that. Just that little push over the cliff. All these punk kids thought they were faster than me. I am going to destroy you all.
For those of you unfamiliar with Cooper, you could say he's the forefather of some of those punk rock groups. When Cooper and his entourage arrived this morning, I found him minus his makeup and perfectly calm and sober.
How has it changed your music?
Well, now the great thing about it is I lost 20 pounds. The energy is so much up. It's like my old running days when I was a miler. I've got that same kind of energy.
Hello. You have been chosen to take a glimpse at the first galaxy tour. We're now traveling through outer space.
For Alice, it's easy to get caught up in something new. I remember freebasing with him, which I'd not done before. And I said, a little bit of coke's okay, dude, but when you start smoking that shit, it's like smoking your home. He sunk into an abyss that was way, way more tragic than any of the drinking, and it broke my heart because, you know, this was my buddy.
Galaxy tour.
It's one of the hardest things I ever did, but I remember leaving that pool house and just going, I can't stay here because I'm gonna go down too.
I am very sorry. Alice Cooper is ill. I'm sorry he is ill. He has had to be taken to the hospital.
I remember saying, I am not going to get up 6 in the morning and work till 12 at night to make you money to go kill yourself with. You want to kill yourself? Be my guest. It was apparent that Alice had an addictive personality. When I could see that he went through that stuff, I knew it was going to be a very fast slide down.
We're back now with Alice Cooper. Now, is Alice somebody else?
Oh, yeah, well, Alice, you know, is the character that performs, really, you know. And
then who are you?
Oh, I'm just, you know, Ozzie Nelson, you know.
You're a family man now, I understand.
Yes, I have a little girl.
Well, how are you at home?
When this little baby came along, my primary concern was her well-being. So I was not so focused on what was going on with him at the time until it spiraled out of control.
Whatever happened to good old Vince Fournier back there on the trail? What happened to him?
Oh, he's still around.
Yeah?
You know? He was fun and everything like that. I'm still Vince, a lot of time. Vince. I look like Vince to you. Hi, I'm Vince.
I was raising our daughter, and I was watching my husband die before my eyes, and I was powerless to make any difference.
We will continue with Alice Cooper with more conversation and more music right after these announcements.
I had begun divorce proceedings, saying, can't do this, won't continue to raise our child with this, and I'm moving to Chicago, and I hope you get through this.
Mommy, where's Daddy? He's been gone for so long. Do you think he'll ever come home?
I blamed all this on Alice. I said, oh, none of this would have happened if it wouldn't have been for my success. I worked too hard. I should have stopped. I should have this. I should have that. And, you know, there's a million should-haves. And now I was by myself. Just me and Alice.
I was gone for all those days, but I was not all alone. I made friends with a lot of people in the
I had been up for about 3 days, and I was like locked in my house up there with a rock the size of a baseball and a gun. I had all Cheryl's dresses around the windows. I didn't want anybody around to see what I had turned into.
I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. I got to get out of here.
I remember I got up and I looked in the mirror and my eyes were bleeding. And then I realized that was what my makeup looked like. And I had that 1 second of, what insanity are you in right now? I took the rock that I still owed money on, put it in the toilet and flushed it. And I went, what did I just do? You know, and I went back to bed and I laid in bed and I slept for about 14 hours. Finally, I woke up. I went in another room, opened the doors up. There was sunlight outside. It was like a point where I realized I was either going to die right there or I was going to live. I had done 100 million miles since I left Phoenix and ended up coming back to start all over.
I'm going home. I wonder if anyone missed me.
My husband and I, we just went and picked him up and helped him out as much as we could. His condition was very bad. He couldn't hardly function.
How many said, I wonder what happened to Alice.
I believe that the only time that God can help you is when you have no fight left. All you can do is just go, help, I'm done.
None of this ever happened, but God, it really did happen.
My husband and I were fasting and praying. We just had to trust that the Lord was going to be with him. We had seen another time when he came through a miracle. This was his second miracle.
When I finally came out of the hospital, I called up Cheryl and I said, it's done. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm over it. You know, craving for alcohol, for drugs. Of course, she's going, right. It's going to take a little more than that to make me believe this.
I said, well, I'll agree to counseling, but you got to arrange it, and I might show up.
God saved me, so I'm here now. Let's see what happens. I think that's when God can go, okay, now you ready? Ready to start this?
Alice Cooper raised us. He raised a bunch of sick motherfucking little kids, children of the 70s, who became the sick motherfucking 80s rock stars. We came from this man's loins. He ejaculated and glam metal was born.
This metal thing snuck up on me a little bit. There was these bands now that were show bands, they were image bands, and they wrote good songs. Once again, the world had moved on, and now Alice Cooper fit in. I kind of felt like I can take my crown back, but I wasn't a rock star anymore. I was a dad and a husband. Could I become that Alice character again? After 5 years away, my return to the stage was Halloween night in my hometown, Detroit, for a concert broadcast live on MTV to millions of teenagers. I was terrified. I remember walking for about 2 hours in a circle. When that music starts, I don't know what's going to happen. What if Alice doesn't show up? I'd never played him straight. What if I go out there and I'm just Vince?
Welcome to my nightmare. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna feel you belong.
As soon as the band started, I said, this is it. My back was rigid. And I walked out there and I looked at the audience and it was, yeah.
Welcome to my nightmare. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna feel right at home. Yeah. Welcome to my nightmare. Yeah.
I finally figured out that this character didn't want to live in my world. He only wanted to be on stage. As soon as he walked off the stage, the curtain came down, he was gone. Because Alice didn't want to live in the house I lived in. He didn't want to be married. He didn't want to play golf. He didn't want to do any of that stuff. He just wanted to perform.
Lines fall on my face and hands. Lines fall from the ups and downs.
The thing that was so amazing, after being almost dead and near the bottom, that he could sell out Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, where the first spark really started, and have Alice live as Alice with a healthy Vincent behind it.
Took me 18 years to get this far. Don't always know what I'm talking about.
Friends in high school, dreamy-eyed kids, clawing their way all the way to the glittery top of the rock pile. I loved what we did, despite the way that the band had broken up. Here's this vision that began art class, and now the Alice character is known worldwide. I'm very proud of that.
When I first got on stage and sang, I'm 18 and I like it, I was close enough to 18 to believe that. And then you go through this incredible hell to get back to the place where you're 18 and you love it again, and you can raise the crutch up and go, I won.
down my cheek, searching for the sea. Tomorrow, like the rain, I'll be back home again. I watch the bus as it pulls out of view. Someday, like that bus, I will be leaving too. But you know, it breaks my heart to leave you. Camelback, my high school. And now, alone, crying in my bed, 'cause old friends said goodbye. I guess I'll be leaving too. But you know, it breaks my heart to leave you. Cortez, I miss you. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. You know I will. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. You know I will. Well, so long, everybody. I hope that I would see you again. Goodbye, everybody. I finally grew up. They finally let me out of school. Hey, remember the time? Remember the time we took that snake and we put it down little Betsy's dress? Now I don't think Miss Axelrod was much impressed. Now I don't think Miss Axelrod was much impressed. Well, I don't think Miss Axelrod was much impressed. Sometime, huh? Hey, don't make a stranger of yourself, huh? Remember the coop, huh? I hope you don't forget me or nothing. Goodbye.
So that was Alice Cooper.
You should see his sister, James Fenimore.
Oh!